Welcome to week 4 of Business 560. Today we're going to talk about business level strategy. But first, something I like to do is to try and make the class a little more real, I guess, is to show you some things that are going on in the business world today that actually are clear examples of why strategic management is important. So I've got actually 2 pages of websites you could go to or websites, articles about different companies and different things going on. And I've picked a few to look at just to give you some examples of again, strategic management. This one was interesting to me. Subway has the most restaurants in the United States. They're actually starting to close them, and they are focusing internationally. So why are they doing that? That is a reaction to a trend in the global environment. The economics are better, or the economies are growing in certain areas. If you read this article, they've shut down locations in the U.S. because the U.S. is just not growing anymore, and the competition is getting fierce. They are opening restaurants in Mexico, the U.K., Germany, South Korea, India, and China, all places that are growing economically and have up-and-coming or existing middle classes that are interested in this kind of fast food. That's a reaction to a strategic environment or strategic thinking in the environment that the company is currently working in. This one was just fascinating to me. Ford is getting ready to close its U.S. car business. All but 2 car models are going to be discontinued, and they will be selling something called the Active and the Mustang for the U.S. market, and GM is probably not far behind. Basically, the trend in this country is towards crossovers, small SUVs, trucks, etc., and the car business is fading. And again, you can read this article, but this is a reaction to trends of consumer preferences in the market. Part of this is a reaction to gas prices, either people becoming used to them being around $2.50 or $3, or the fact that they're not even more. So people are back to wanting crossovers and SUVs and even trucks. And this one, I have to show you this one because I think this may be the scariest thing I've ever seen. But it's an interesting example of where technology is taking us. So hold on a second. So I'll let you listen to this on your own. But basically what China is doing is they are monitoring its citizens. They are scoring them based on what they're doing. Let me see if I can play this, and you guys can take a gander at it, and let me see if I can get it to record for you.
All of its 1.4 billion citizens a personal score based on how they behave. So some people with low scores are already being punished if they want to travel. Nearly 11 million Chinese people can no longer fly, and 4 million are barred from trains. Next week, the program will start expanding nationwide. Ben Tracy is in China with what's behind the government scoring system. Ben, this sounds like scary stuff. Good morning.
Good morning. The government here says it is trying to purify society by rewarding those who are trustworthy and punishing those who are not. So like the credit score that most Americans get for how they handle their finances, Chinese citizens are now getting social credit scores based on everything from whether they pay their taxes on time to how they cross the street. When Liu Hu recently tried to book a flight, he was told he was banned from flying because he's on the list of untrustworthy people. Leo is a journalist who was ordered by a court to apologize for a series of tweets he wrote and was then told his apology was insincere. I can't buy property. My child can't go to private school, he says. You feel you're being controlled by the list all the time. And the list is now getting longer. as every Chinese citizen is being assigned a social credit score, a fluctuating rating based on a range of behaviors. It's believed that community service and buying Chinese-made products can raise your score. Fraud, tax evasion, and smoking in non-smoking areas can drop it. If a score gets too low, a person can be banned from buying plane and train tickets, real estate, cars, and even high-speed internet. It's a good thing, this woman says. There should be punishment for people who can't behave. China's growing network of surveillance cameras makes all of this possible. The country already has an estimated 176 million cameras, and it plans to have more than 600 million installed by 2020.
It can recognize more than 4,000 vehicles.
Xu Li is the CEO of SenseTime, one of China's most successful artificial intelligence companies. It has created smart cameras for the government that can help catch criminals, but also track average citizens. This knows every person, every bike, every car, every bus.
You can tell whether it is an adult, a child, a male or female.
In several big cities in China, including here in Shanghai, the government is even tracking jaywalkers. Cameras record them going through intersections, zero in on their face, and then publicly shame them on nearby video screens. Ken Dewaskin has studied China's economic and political culture for more than 3 decades. He says how the new scoring system truly works is kept secret and could be easily abused by the government. How far into people's daily mundane activities does this?
So I show you that, one, because it just scared the pants off of me, but also because it's an indicator of the technology coming our way. The things that companies will be able to do with artificial intelligence. I had this discussion in class the other day about retail, where the future of retail is you're going to walk in the store and they're going to greet you by name with a cup of coffee and say, "Oh, I know you're looking for, sweaters and sweatshirts, and we happen to put aside 3 or 4 into our dressing room for you. Come this way. There's a mocha brav waiting for you," because they're going to know all that. So it's quite intense when you think about the amount of technology, where it's going, and how it's going to be used. Anyway, I would encourage you, if nothing else, just for fun, you could look at these articles. Obviously, you can find them yourselves, but they're interesting because they all show strategic thinking in action. So theoretically, at this point, you have finished your SWOT analysis, your basic SWOT analysis. You have worked hard to come up and determine your company's strengths and weaknesses, and you have identified critical opportunities and threats facing your organization. Now we're ready to take on, what do you do with that? And this is where we flip the matrix, we turn it into a TOES matrix, and we talk about how do we use our strengths to take advantage of opportunities, how do we use our strengths to minimize threats, etc., etc. And then for each, and so now what we're going to do is start focusing on strategy. And as we talked before, there's the first strategy level that we're going to look at is business level strategy. And basically what business level strategy has to do with is the question is, how do you compete in your competitive environment? If you go back to the Porter's 5 Forces model and you think about the power of suppliers and the power of buyers, substitute products, the question is, how do I overcome that competitive environment to remain, sustain my own competitive advantage? You have 3 generic strategies: the overall cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. And this is your tool for the business level strategy thinking. And basically the way I think about it is you ask the question, why do you go shop, or why do you buy what you buy? In Sioux Falls, I use the example of grocery stores. Why do people go to Walmart? Usually it's because it's cheaper. Why do people go to Hy-Vee? It's because they like the product, it's differentiated, it's a higher quality fruits and vegetables. Why do people go to Sunshine? Generally they go to Sunshine because it's convenient, it's in their local community, they don't have to actually drive into town. And so there's different reasons why you shop different places. Generically, there's three strategies that we're going to look at: cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. So basically, cost leadership is all about being the lowest cost provider relative to your peers. This is the Walmart strategy. In the old days, it was McDonald's. It's the dollar store strategy. And basically what this focus forces you to do is to maintain a low-cost focus throughout all of your value chain. So you want to keep that in mind. Differentiation implies that products and services are unique and valued. Doesn't have to do with price. When you are buying a car, if you buy a Honda, a Lexus, or you buy a BMW, you're not buying based on price, you're buying based on a differentiation of quality or brand. Apple iPhones, a lot of people buy Apple products simply because they're Apple products. That's a differentiator. And a focus strategy is where you focus on a narrow segment. It could be geographic. It can be a particular consumer basis. Men's Big and Tall is a good example. The Baby Gap is a good example. Those are targeted, specifically targeted type companies. That's what a focus strategy is. So overall cost leadership basically involves very tight cost controls and overhead controls. Basically, it focuses on aggressively instituting cost controls throughout the entire value chain. And having done some business recently with Walmart as a supplier, I can tell you that that's how they work. Everything is put on the supplier in terms of logistics and product handling and any problems with the product. They beat you down on the price when they buy it from you. Everything is targeted at achieving the lowest possible price for the product. Basically, this requires you to continue to learn as you're implementing the strategy so that you can get better at it. And it also does, and it's important to note that for a lot of customers, it does require some sort of competitive parity. In other words, if you're really low price, but the product is just so far off the charts bad, it probably won't work. I use the example years ago, there was a car that was introduced into the U.S. market called the Yugo, and it was like $3,500, and the thing was literally a tin can on wheels, and it didn't take in this market. A few years back, probably 20 now, but Hyundai and Kia came into the market as low-cost providers, and their product is now, of course, evolved, and they have some very nice vehicles, but at that time they were competing strictly on being low cost. What does this do for you in the context of your competitive environment? It basically protects you against your competitors. It also protects you against potentially powerful buyers. This is a way that you're differentiating yourself from your competition by being low cost. If you get big enough and you can maintain that low cost, it does create substantial barriers of entry to companies that might want to come compete with you. And of course, it gives you an advantage in terms of substitute products. Again, if you have powerful buyers, one way to overcome powerful buyers or powerful substitute products is to make your product more desirable. One way you make your product more desirable is being low cost. Sometimes this is a problem. Sometimes other people will low cost you, if you will. You're reliant on the cost of the inputs staying down. Your product may not be adequately differentiated. And so there are some pitfalls with this. And as we look at the strategic recommendations, it's important to think through How do I maintain my cost leadership approach? In differentiation, it can take many forms. Whether it's brand like an Apple or a Harley Davidson or a Rolex watch or a BMW, quality, innovation, features, you can differentiate based on your customer service and what you're offering to people, and even your dealer network. Frankly, this is how most companies compete, is they figure out some sort of a feature or enhancement that allows them to carve out a niche in the marketplace. You do require, just like we did with low cost, you do require some cost parity. If you ever get bored, Google high-cost sunglasses. I mean, there's sunglasses out there that you can spend $35,000 on. Well, for most customers, that's ridiculous. When you go to buy sunglasses at Scheels, they run anywhere from $10 to $200 or $300. If they have one in there that's $35,000, that's clearly not in the realm of cost parity. And that's, by the way, that is a focus strategy on very rich people. You are focusing on creating that differentiation at various levels in the value chain, and it basically infuse itself throughout the entire value chain. This also allows you to create competitive advantage with regards to the 5 forces, higher barriers to entry because of customer loyalty. John Deere's an example of that, where if you buy John Deere products, you will always buy John Deere products because of the brand loyalty. A lot of times, because pricing isn't critical in this, when you're differentiated, you may be able to create higher margins, and it does give you a way to battle powerful buyers by developing differentiation that they desire, and also the same as a way to overcome the force of substitute products. There is, of course, pitfalls. It can come with too high a price. It can be too differentiated to the point where the customer just looks at it and says, no, I don't want that because it's too weird. And of course, whenever you do differentiate, obviously different buyers and different sellers are going to have different perceptions of that differentiation and whether it's worthwhile or not. And finally, there's a focus strategy. The focus strategy targets a particular set of customers or a particular market segment. And you dedicate yourself to those market segments exclusively. Interesting, we call it a mixed strategy, but the focus strategy has 2 variants. You can be in your niche market or your target market, you can be the lowest cost, or within that niche or target market, you can differentiate your products and services in order to exploit the needs of the buyer. Again, the focus strategy is used as a way to overcome issues in the 5 forces model. It reduces buyer power because firms provide specialized products and services. So if you are a big and tall man and you need big and tall clothes, you may not have any choice about where you go shop because you have to go to the stores that have your products. Again, without being focused on price, you can generate potentially higher margins, and again, it overcomes barriers to entry. It's harder to get into a niche market if you have created the brand and the loyalty already. And of course, there are always pitfalls. People can copy you. You are often too focused on a particular market segment, and if that market segment evolves, you may miss the boat, and things like that. So pitfalls of focus is very important to make sure you're paying attention to. We'll go over this pretty quickly, but there's a lot of, we call it combination strategies. Again, the goal of combination strategy is to provide unique value to overcome the Porter's five forces or the competitive environment, the integration of low cost and differentiation strategies generally makes it difficult for competitors to copy. So this is one way, if you can be focused and low cost, for example, that you can create a unique and valuable competitive advantage. Just some examples of, where you can create mass customization now. Dell Computer really was one of the first to start this, where their whole gimmick was to buy a computer from them. You could actually pick and choose the features, and they would assemble it to your specifications. People do that in the car world to some extent now. So there's, again, the combination strategies are being further enhanced by some technology advancements. A combination overall low cost and differentiation strategy, again, creates higher entry barriers because of both the cost leadership and differentiation. The overall value proposition reduces threats from substitutes, etc. And then finally, of course, you can get in trouble if you are trying to straddle the line all the time. You may be stuck in the middle where you are not a leader in anything, and you're sort of just you're on the fence, so to speak. So those are the three key strategies that you want to think about as we talk about business level strategy. Okay, so where does that leave us? So remember, what we're doing this week is we're asking the question, does your company have the right business level strategy given trends in the external environment? So if you see some significant trends out there, should your company, if they're currently, first of all, you need to identify, are they low cost, are they differentiation, or some combination with focus? And do you have to change that given the trends in the external environment? Are they using combination strategies? Are they being effective at that? And given their strategy, do they need to modify or enhance various functions in the organization? So one of the things that you may conclude that your company has a perfectly good strategy based on those trends, but that they need to focus on improving certain functions. So if you go back to our matrix with the TOES matrix with each strategy in it, if you have a threat coming at you in cybersecurity and you have a functional weakness in IT, then your strategic recommendation might be, we better fix our IT department, or we better buy a company that specializes in cybersecurity. If you are differentiating your product by technology, and your technology development group in the support functions is not very strong, but you see tremendous technology trends coming into your industry, you may choose to focus on, what do I do to enhance my technology development? The point is that you're going to start by looking at, is my business strategy still make sense given the environment and the trends in the environment? And if it does, what functions do I need to either enhance, or that are strengths that I need to enhance, or weaknesses that I need to fix? And if you need to change your business strategy, be careful, because remember, if you were focused on a low-cost strategy, throughout your entire value chain, that low-cost mentality has been infused. And so if you suddenly decide that you're going to differentiate and provide high-end differentiated products and services, you may have a real challenge to change your value chain. Imagine Walmart deciding to become Nordstrom's or something, or a high-end market, or whatever it is. Well, becoming Whole Foods, for example. The change in how they do things would be traumatic. Doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. Just be careful when you make a recommendation to change the business level strategy. low-hanging fruit in this area is that anything that you identified as a weakness in their value chain, as a strategic recommendation, you might want to suggest they fix it. And so if you've analyzed the value chain and determined that their customer service stinks, or their marketing is bad, or their IT department is weak, why not just recommend that we fix those things? And so we want to talk about those are areas we need to fix, and we also want to talk about, okay, how do we fix them? Do we fix them by internally hiring people, or do we fix them through some sort of acquisition or partnership strategy? All right, that's a pretty quick and dirty high-level overview of business strategy. If you have any questions, of course, please email me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks very much.